My name is Lily, and I am 73 years old. My voice shakes sometimes, not because I am weak, but because I have lived too much. Far too much. You may see wrinkles on my face and think they came from age, but no, each line was carved by a moment, a sacrifice, a prayer whispered in the dark, a tear I wiped away before anyone noticed. And today, I am going to tell you the story of the day everything changed. The day my own son asked me 3 times to clean the bathroom like I was one of his household workers. And the day I quietly walked away and claimed my $300 million prize. I know how unbelievable that sounds. A fragile old woman, walking slowly, coughing sometimes, wearing the same sweater for the 4th winter, secretly holding a fortune. But life is strange. People are stranger. And families, sometimes the strangest of all. Before I take you into that morning, the morning when my son's voice cut through my heart like a blade, I must take you back to the beginning. Understanding what happened requires knowing the years that came before it. Because pain does not grow overnight. It grows slowly, silently, until one day it bursts. I was born in a small town, raised by simple parents who believed in 2 things: work hard and love harder. I married the love of my life when I was 22. His name was William. Oh, how that man loved me. He was gentle. He was strong. He was everything a woman prays for. We built our life from nothing, just to hearts, to hands, and a dream. We didn't have wealth, but we had peace. And peace is a kind of wealth too, one people forget to count. We had one son, Michael, my whole world, my only world, the boy I carried in my arms, the boy whose fever I stayed awake for nights to monitor, the boy I protected from every storm. I cooked for him, sewed for him, saved for him, prayed for him. I thought raising a child with love guaranteed that child would return love. I was wrong. But that truth came much later. After too many years, too many hopes, and too many quiet disappointments, when my husband died, God rest his soul, everything changed. Suddenly, I was alone in a house that felt too big to quiet. The walls still held his laughter, but the floors echoed with emptiness. Michael saw my loneliness and said the words every mother wants to hear: "Mom, come live with us. You shouldn't be alone." I thought he meant it. I thought it came from love, but in reality, it came from convenience. Michael and his wife, Julia, had 2 children, my sweet grandchildren, and for them, I moved. I packed 40 years of memories into boxes, kissed my old home goodbye, and carried my aching heart into their world. I told myself I would adjust. I told myself this was a new beginning, but I didn't realize I wasn't joining a family. I was becoming. Help! The first week felt warm. They smiled. They served me tea. They said, "Rest, Mom." They hugged me. Oh, how my heart believed them. But slowly, almost invisibly, things shifted. "Mom, can you fold the laundry while we're out? Mom, can you make the kids breakfast tomorrow? Mom, can you watch them for a few hours? Mom, can you clean the kitchen today? Mom, can you handle the dusting?" I didn't complain. A mother never complains, but after months, the tasks grew heavier. The tone grew colder. The requests became demands. The guest room where I stayed was small. A tiny mattress, a thin blanket, no space for my old books or my husband's photographs. I didn't mind. I told myself a room is just a room. Family is what matters. But family, oh, dear God, family can hurt you in ways strangers never would. Michael stopped sitting with me, stopped asking how I felt, stopped noticing when my knees swelled. His wife, Julia, started looking at me like I was in the way, like I was furniture, like I was something placed in the house but never truly welcomed. Yet I remained quiet. I swallowed every ache, every insult, every lonely meal. Because mothers forgive too much. But then came that morning. The morning I will never forget for as long as I breathe. The sun had not even risen fully. My joints were hurting from the cold. I was sitting at the edge of my bed, tying my shawl, when I heard Michael's voice from the hallway. "Mom, clean the bathroom when you're done." At first, I thought he was talking to someone else. Surely he wouldn't. Not like that. I stepped out slowly, Michael, did you say something? He didn't even look at me. Yes, Mom. Clean the bathroom. It's dirty. Dirty. The bathroom they all used. The bathroom I cleaned 2 days earlier. The bathroom that hurt my back every time I scrubbed it. I opened my mouth to say, my knees are hurting today, but before I could speak, Julia chimed in, yes, please clean it properly this time. Double quotes properly. As if I had done a bad job last time. As if I wasn't an old woman doing her best. As if I were their maid. I lowered my eyes and nodded. That's what mothers do. Nod. Even when their hearts shatter. I went back to my room. My hands trembled. Not from age, no. This tremble came from something deeper. Something breaking inside me. Something that had been cracking for years and finally snapped. I sat on the bed, closed my eyes, and silently cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just tears. The quiet kind that fall without sound. And then, a thought came to me. A memory. A secret. A secret worth $300 million. You see, 11 years ago, before my husband died, I had bought a lottery ticket while buying groceries. Just a small act. Just for fun. I never expected anything. Life had never given me much. Why would it start then? But that night, we won $300 million. I remember gripping the ticket in shock. My hands shaking. My heartbeat racing. My husband hugging me tightly, whispering, Lily, this is our miracle. We cried together. We prayed together. We promised to use the money wisely. But before we could claim it publicly, my husband grew very ill. His greatest fear was simple. Lily, please, don't let this money ruin our son. Money changes people. I promised him. A wife always keeps promises. I quietly claimed the prize through a special trust, kept it hidden, kept it untouched. I lived simply. I saved everything. Not a single person knew, not even my son. I wanted Michael to grow with humility. I wanted him to build his own strength. I wanted him to stand on his own feet. But that morning, when he ordered me to clean the bathroom like a servant, I realized something painful. I had raised him with love, but I had not raised him with respect. And suddenly, something changed inside me. I wiped my tears. I stood up slowly. My knees ached, but my heart grew stronger. I walked to the wooden box hidden under my bed, a box no one had touched in years. Inside were the documents, trust papers, investment accounts, confirmation letters, all showing that the humble old lady they mistreated was a millionaire many times over. My hands shook, but this time, with power. For the first time in years, I felt my dignity return. Quietly, but surely, I packed a small bag, one sweater, a few memories, the documents. Nothing else. I stepped out of my room. Michael didn't look up. Julia didn't ask where I was going. The children were too busy on their tablets. I realized, if I disappeared that moment, no one would notice for hours, and that hurt more than everything else. I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped out into the cold morning air. For the first time in years, I felt free. I walked down the street, took a deep breath, and whispered, William, I'm choosing myself now. Then I dialed the number I had saved for over a decade. My lawyer picked up. Lily? He said, surprised. Yes. I whispered. It's time. He knew exactly what I meant, and that was the beginning of my new life. When I stepped out of my son's house that cold morning, carrying only a small bag and my long-hidden documents, the world around me felt unfamiliar, like I had been reborn into a life I had forgotten existed. The street was quiet. The sky was pale. The air smelled like freedom and fear at the same time. I am an old woman, 73. I have lived long enough to know that new beginnings don't come easily. They come with trembling steps, shaky breaths, and a heart that is half broken, half hopeful. That morning, every step I took away from that house felt like walking out of a cage I didn't even realize I had been living in. My phone buzzed. Lily, my lawyer said, his voice gentle. Where are you? Are you safe? Safe. What a strange word. I stopped at a bench near the park and sat down. Yes, John, I whispered. I finally walked away. There was a pause on the phone. A sigh, almost a sadness. You should have walked away years ago, he said softly. I know, I replied. But a mother, she holds on longer than she should. He understood. He always understood. He handled everything for me all these years, managing the trusts, the investments, the legal protections. I trusted him more than anyone. Come to the office, he said. We'll arrange everything. I agreed. But my hands shook as I ended the call. But because I was stepping into a life I had hidden even from myself. I got up slowly, feeling the stiffness in my bones. I walked toward the bus stop because I didn't want to spend money on a taxi, not yet. Old habits don't change in 1 hour. I had lived simply for decades, and while it still felt like a stranger walking beside me, people looked at me with soft curiosity. An old woman walking alone with a small bag, her eyes tired, her hands trembling a little. No one knew that the woman they were seeing owned more money than most of the city put together. I reached the law office after a quiet bus ride. The receptionist helped me sit down and offered me water. I must have looked exhausted because she kept asking, "Are you feeling gawky, ma'am?" I smiled and nodded. I was tired. Yes, but I was also free. John came out of his office and hugged me gently, carefully. "Let's go inside," he said. His office was warm, filled with books and documents. He pulled out a chair for me, and I sat down slowly. "You're shaking," he said, noticing my hands. "It's not fear," I whispered. "Just change." He nodded and placed a thick folder on the table, the folder containing my entire secret life. "Everything is ready, Lily," he said. "Your accounts, your investments, your trusts, all untouched, all growing. With interest and returns, your $300 million has grown even more." I felt the weight of those words. Not pride. Not excitement. Just a deep, quiet ache. What use was all that money when my only son didn't even treat me with basic respect? John continued, "I've arranged a luxury apartment for you if you want to move in immediately. Fully furnished, top floor, 24-hour security." I looked down at my worn shoes, the same shoes I had worn for winters. "I don't want anything luxurious," I said calmly. "I just want a place where no one will look down on me. And you'll have that," he promised. And I swallowed hard. "I want to cut financial ties with my son. He must never get access to any of this money." He nodded without hesitation. "He won't," he said. "You already structured your fortune in a way that makes you the sole beneficiary. It's yours alone." A tear rolled down my cheek. I wiped it quickly. "Mothers," I whispered, "they give everything. But sometimes, giving ruins people." John placed his hand over mine. "You're not cruel, Lily. You're wise. You're choosing peace." I nodded. For the first time in years, I felt seen. He finalized the signatures, printed new statements, and handed me a bank card. "My bank card. This," he said softly, "is your life finally in your hands." My fingers wrapped around the card. The plastic felt heavier than gold. I left the office feeling lighter, but also strangely hollow. When you love someone your whole life, walking away doesn't feel like freedom, it feels like grieving. Outside, the sun had finally risen. The city looked brighter, yet my heart was still bruised. I decided to walk for a while, letting the cold air soothe my thoughts. As I walked, memories flooded my mind. Michael as a small boy, holding my hand tightly, his tiny voice calling, "Mommy," his laughter echoing through our little kitchen. The way he used to run to me when he fell, the way he hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe. Where did that boy go? When did love turn into entitlement? When did motherhood become servitude? I reached the apartment building John had arranged for me. A tall tower, modern, shining like a future I never let myself imagine. The doorman greeted me with respect, calling me ma'am with warmth in his voice. Respect, a simple word, but a luxury I had not felt in years. My new apartment was on the 23rd floor. When I opened the door, I gasped. Warm lights, soft carpets, a comfortable bed, a kitchen that smelled new, a balcony overlooking the entire city. I walked slowly inside, touching the surfaces, feeling the softness of the couch, the warmth of the air. A home, a real home. Not a corner, not a box, not an unwanted room, a home made for me. I sat on the bed and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt like a human being again, but that peace was soon interrupted. My phone rang. Michael. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. His name looked strange, familiar but distant. I took a slow breath and answered. Mom, where are you? He asked, his voice slightly irritated. I left. I said simply. What? Left where? Left your house. There was silence. Then a harsh disbelief. Mom, what are you talking about? Why would you leave? I laughed a soft, broken laugh. You didn't even notice when I walked out. Well, you could have told someone. You always overreact to things. Overreact. That one word broke something inside me. Michael, I whispered, you asked me 3 times to clean a bathroom. You didn't ask how my knees hurt. You didn't ask if I slept well. You didn't ask if I was okay. You just ordered. He sighed loudly. Mom, you live in our house. You should help. I am your mother. I said firmly, not your maid. He went quiet. You're being dramatic. He finally said, there it was. The sentence that closes a mother's heart. I won't be coming back, I said softly. Where will you go? You can't live alone at your age. Mom, you need us. I took a deep breath. No. I whispered, I needed you, but you forgot me. And then, I ended the call. I placed the phone on the bed and let myself cry, not from weakness, but from release. Years of pain, years of silence, years of being taken for granted, washing out of me at once. When I finally stopped crying, I stood up, walked to the balcony, looked at the bright city lights, and made a promise to myself. I will live now. For me, I spent the next hours settling into my new home, opening cabinets, placing my small bag in the closet, touching soft pillows, feeling warm air. Every little thing felt like a luxury. In the evening, I went downstairs to the lobby cafe. I ordered a cup of tea, the first tea I bought for myself in years. The waitress smiled at me, such a simple gesture, but it warmed my heart when she placed the tea in front of me. Her hands were gentle. I almost cried again. Respect, kindness, warmth. These small things felt like wealth. As I sipped my tea, I wondered, would Michael ever realize what he lost? Would he regret it? Would he miss me, even a little? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing was certain. I would never return to being invisible. Later that night, when I returned to my apartment, the silence wasn't lonely. It was peaceful, soft, healing. I opened the folder of documents, the fortune I had locked away for 11 years. I traced my fingers over the pages. $300 million. Wealth I never wanted to use. Wealth I never wanted to need. But now it was my protection, my safety, my freedom. I got into bed, pulled the warm blanket over myself, and whispered, William, I hope you're proud of me. I slept peacefully that night, truly peacefully, for the first time in years. The next morning, sunlight gently entered my new apartment, lighting up the soft curtains and warm walls. For the first time in many years, I woke up without hearing footsteps outside my door, without being hurried, without feeling like a burden. I lay there for a moment, just listening to the silence, a peaceful silence, not the lonely one I had lived with for far too long. I sat up slowly. My bones felt heavy, but my spirit felt light, strangely light, as if overnight a weight had lifted from my chest. I ran my hand over the blanket. Soft, warm, clean, no stains from grandchildren spilling juice, no coldness from an unheated guest room. This was mine. I stood up, walked toward the window, and gently drew the curtains aside. The city stretched below like a living painting, cars moving, people walking, distant buildings catching the morning light. Everything felt alive, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive too. I whispered a small prayer of gratitude. Not for the money, no, but for the second chance. I boiled water, made a simple cup of tea, and sat by the window. The warmth in my hands felt comforting. I closed my eyes and let my mind drift, not to pain this time, but to possibilities. What do people do when they finally choose themselves? At 73, what does freedom look like? The answer was unclear, but I was ready to find out. My morning peace broke when my phone buzzed again. Michael. I ignored it. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for doing so. Minutes later, a message appeared. Mom, this isn't funny. When are you coming back? Coming back. As if I were some misplaced item that should return to its shelf. Then another message. We need you here. The kids need you. The kids did. I knew they did. But their parents, they needed my hands, not my heart. I turned the phone face down on the table. I wasn't ready. I needed time, space, breath. After finishing my tea, I changed into the only fresh outfit I had, a simple dress, soft, comfortable. I looked at myself in the mirror. My white hair, tied loosely. My wrinkled skin, gentle and familiar. My tired eyes, slowly brightening. Default text Lily, I whispered to my reflection. Today, we start living. I called for a taxi, my first time calling one for myself. The driver arrived quickly, and I stepped in carefully. Where to, ma'am? He asked. I paused. For a moment, I didn't know. Then I smiled. Somewhere nice. Somewhere good. He chuckled. That can be arranged. He took me to a beautiful riverfront walkway. Trees lined the path, their leaves gently falling to the ground. Water flowed calmly nearby. People walked dogs. Couples held hands. Children ran around with bright laughter. Life. Simple life. Something I hadn't touched in years. I walked slowly. My ankles hurt a bit, but I didn't stop. I felt the sun on my face. I inhaled deeply. It smelled of fresh beginnings. As I walked farther, a small cafe caught my eye. It had outdoor seating, little plants hanging around, soft music playing. I stepped inside. The barista smiled warmly. Good morning, ma'am. What can I get for you today? Warmth again. Every small kindness felt like a gift. I ordered a light breakfast. As I ate, I watched people around me, some talking, some laughing, some simply existing. Something inside me whispered, "You deserve this, Lily." Halfway through my meal, I heard the door open. A tall man walked in, dressed neatly, carrying a leather folder. He looked around, then his eyes met mine. John, my lawyer, a kind man in his 50s with soft eyes and silver hair. I smiled. John, what a surprise. He walked over. I tried calling you, he said gently. Are you all right? I'm better than all right, I replied. I'm breathing again. He sat down with a relieved sigh. You scared me, you know. Disappearing like that. I needed quiet, I said softly. I needed to hear myself. He nodded. That makes sense. He placed a leather folder on the table. I brought something for you. I raised an eyebrow. He slid the folder toward me. I opened it slowly. Inside were documents, property listings, bank statements all updated, and something else. A platinum card with my name engraved in silver. I stared at it. The card looked heavy. It wasn't just wealth. It was independence. You don't have to use it, John said quickly. But it's yours. And so is everything else. My hands trembled slightly as I touched the card. All my life, I had been careful, frugal, self-sacrificing. This felt unreal, John. I whispered, what do I do now? He leaned back, folded his hands, and said something I will never forget. Live, Lily. Live the life you deserved years ago. I looked up at him. My eyes stung. Do you think I waited too long? He shook his head. No, you walked away the moment you realized your worth again. That's courage, Lily. Most people never do. I smiled. A soft, grateful smile. I want to do something good, I said suddenly. What kind of good? I thought for a moment. Something small. Something kind. Something my husband would smile at. I want to help people who are invisible, I said softly, just like I was. John smiled back. That is a beautiful idea. We discussed possibilities, charities, shelters, elder care homes, programs for lonely seniors. I didn't know where to start yet, but I knew I wanted to give, not in the way I gave to my son, silently, endlessly, thanklessly, but in a way that healed, not harmed. When we finished talking, John left. I stayed seated, staring out the cafe window. I remembered something, a memory sharp and painful. Last winter, when I lived with Michael, the heater in my small room broke. I told him quietly. He said, "Mom, just use another blanket." He didn't even look up from his phone. That night, I slept fully clothed, shivering. My fingers went numb. I cried silently in the dark because I didn't want to bother them again. And now here I was, in a warm cafe, eating warm food, making plans for my own future. I wiped my eyes quickly. Freedom is beautiful but healing. Healing takes time. I spent the afternoon walking by the river again, watching sunlight sparkle on the water, listening to the quiet hum of the city. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. When I returned to my apartment, the lobby receptionist greeted me. "Good evening, Miss Lily. Hope you had a lovely day." Lovely. A word never spoken to me in my son's home. Upstairs, I settled in. I ordered groceries online another first. As I put the items away, the intercom buzzed. I froze. Was it Michael? Did he come looking for me? I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A polite voice replied. "Ma'am, you have a delivery." Delivery? I opened the door. A young man held a small bouquet of white lilies. "For you, ma'am." Anonymous sender. Lily flowers. My name. My symbol of peace. I took the bouquet gently. Inside was a small note. "Start again. W." My breath caught. W. William. My husband used to sign cards with a single letter, but he was gone. He had been gone for years. Was the sender someone else? Someone from the past? A friend he once knew? My hands trembled slightly as I held the flowers. They smelled like old memories, like love that never dies. I placed the bouquet on the dining table. For a moment, it felt like my husband was beside me, whispering strength into my heart. Later that night, Michael called again and again. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. Instead, I stood on my balcony, feeling the cool air brush against my skin. The city lights sparkled below. My heart felt bruised. Yes, but also blooming for the first time in a long time. I whispered, "I deserve more." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. And in that breath, I felt the beginning of a new life. A life that was finally mine. I still remember that night as clearly as I remember the day my son was born. Every detail, every breath, every silence felt like it carved itself into my bones. After I had quietly dropped my $300 million lottery ticket into the top drawer of my dresser, I sat on the edge of my bed wondering where it all went wrong between me and my child. A son I raised with my own tired hands. And yet, somehow, he grew into someone who could look into my eyes and see nothing but a woman meant to obey, a woman meant to serve, a woman meant to quietly clean a bathroom even when her legs shook from age and her heart trembled from pain. And I wonder, was it my fault? Did I protect him too much? Love him too gently? Or did life simply harden him in ways I never could have predicted? These thoughts followed me like a ghost as I lay down that night. Sleep did not come easily. My old bones complained against the mattress, and my mind refused to rest. I heard my son walking down the hallway loudly, angrily, complaining to his wife about how lazy I had become. Lazy, a word that hit me like a stone thrown at someone who spent 70 years working, sacrificing, cleaning, cooking, surviving. But I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. After all, what defense does a mother give to her own child? It breaks something inside you, something sacred, to even consider fighting with the one you once rocked to sleep. As the night dragged on, I thought about the day I bought that lottery ticket. It was nothing special, just a small moment after grocery shopping. I had a few coins left after buying discounted vegetables, and something inside me whispered, "Try one more time." I didn't buy it with dreams of luxury. I bought it with a quiet prayer that maybe, just maybe, life would give me one small miracle in my final years. And it did, but I didn't tell anyone. Not a single soul. Not even my best friend Maria. Because I knew if my son found out, he would treat me not like a mother but like a walking bank. And that night proved exactly why I stayed silent. The next morning, Sunlight filtered through the curtains, warm and soft, but it did little to comfort the heaviness inside my chest. I got up slowly, made my way to the kitchen, and started preparing breakfast like I did every day. My son walked in, didn't greet me, didn't smile, just pointed toward the bathroom and said, "You better clean it before noon, okay? I told you 3 times yesterday." I'm tired of repeating myself. I nodded quietly. What else could I do? My voice felt trapped somewhere between sorrow and acceptance. But inside something shifted. Something small, but powerful. A seed. After breakfast, I went back to my room and opened the dresser drawer. There it was. The lottery ticket. The tiny slip of paper that held more value than the entire house my son owned. My fingers trembled as I picked it up, not out of fear, but out of the realization that I held something bigger than money. I held freedom. Freedom from being treated like a maid. Freedom from being talked down to. Freedom from being a burden. Freedom from the humiliation of being told to clean a bathroom 3 times even after my back refused to straighten. I put the ticket in a small envelope and tucked it under my pillow. No one knew. No one suspected. To them, I was just an old lady with fading strength and fading importance. They never imagined that the very person they dismissed had the power to rebuild her entire life from the ground up. Around noon, I heard my son's voice again, loud and irritated. "Mom, did you clean the bathroom? Why do you move so slow? Do you want me to get upset?" Something inside me cracked then. Not anger, not frustration, something deeper. A realization that my son no longer saw me as a human being. And I thought, if he cannot respect me when I am poor, he does not deserve to know me when I have wealth. The bathroom remained untouched. My heart remained disappointed, but stronger than yesterday. When he came to my room to check, he opened the door hard enough that it banged against the wall. "Why haven't you cleaned it yet?" he demanded. I looked at him with calm eyes, calmer than I expected. "I will do it," I whispered. "Just give me a little time." He rolled his eyes and stormed out. When he walked away, I sank back into my chair. My hands trembled, but not from fear this time, from resolve. I had spent so many years being quiet that my silence had become a habit. But that day, silence felt less like peace and more like surrender. And I was tired of surrendering. Later that evening, I walked outside into the little backyard. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. I took a deep breath. Fresh, cool air filled my lungs, clearing the fog that had clouded my mind. I sat on the old wooden bench my late husband had built decades ago. I closed my eyes and imagined his voice. "You deserve better," he would have said. "Don't let anyone take away your dignity." Tears rolled down my cheeks. I missed him. I missed the life we had, the respect, the partnership, the gentle understanding without needing words. And I realized something painful yet freeing. If he had been alive, he never would have let our son speak to me the way he did. As I sat there, I decided to walk to the nearby lottery office the next morning. I didn't know exactly what I would do afterwards, but I knew one thing. I was done being treated like a burden. Tonight, as I lay in bed, the house felt colder than usual. My son and his wife laughed loudly in their room, completely unaware that their lives were about to shift. I didn't want revenge. No, that's not who I am. I just wanted respect. A little tenderness. A little kindness in my old age. But since it wasn't available in this home, I prepared myself for change. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. Quietly, softly, like the old habit of a mother who didn't want to wake her children. I got dressed, put on my warm shawl, tucked the envelope with the ticket into my purse, and stepped outside. The sky was pale and cool. Birds were just waking. For a moment, I felt like I was stepping into a new world. A world where I finally had a say, where I finally chose myself. I walked to the lottery headquarters a few blocks away. My heart pounded. My hands shook. The moment felt unreal. At my age, it felt absurd, surreal, extraordinary. When I entered the building, the employee behind the counter greeted me gently, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" I handed her the envelope silently. She opened it, looked at the ticket, then at me, her eyebrows raised. "Ma'am, do you know this ticket is worth $300 million? I smiled softly. Yes, dear. I know. The room went quiet for a moment. Then she nodded respectfully. Please come with me. For the first time in years, someone's tone made me feel seen, valuable, human. They took me to a private office, offered me a seat, offered me water, explained the confirmation process slowly, kindly, respectfully. I felt my eyes growing misty not because of the money but because of how gently they treated me. Something as simple as respect felt like a luxury. The woman asked me, should we call someone to help you manage this? A family member, maybe? I shook my head instantly. No, no one knows. And I wanted to stay that way. She nodded. Once everything was finalized, they told me the funds would be transferred to a new account created under my name alone. And as I signed the last document, something inside me felt reborn. Strong, stable, grounded. I walked out of that building not like a millionaire, but like a woman who finally took back her dignity. And that was worth more than any number. When I arrived home, my son didn't even notice I had been gone. He just yelled from the living room, Mom, the bathroom is still dirty. Seriously, what's wrong with you? I didn't answer, because from that moment on, I was no longer living for his approval. I was planning my escape, my new life, my quiet freedom. And that freedom had just begun. The first night in my new apartment had been quiet, serene, and unfamiliar. I had never experienced such peace. For decades, my life had revolved around the needs of others, my husband, my son, my grandchildren, and now, for the first time, the center of my life was me. It was liberating, but it also came with a strange sense of uncertainty. I had the wealth of millions and the freedom I had longed for, yet I had no roadmap for what to do with myself. The first night in my new apartment had been quiet, serene, and unfamiliar. I had never experienced such peace. For decades, my life had revolved around the needs of others, my husband, my son, my grandchildren, and now, for the first time, the center of my life was me. It was liberating, but it also came with a strange sense of uncertainty. I had the wealth of millions and the freedom I had longed for, yet I had no roadmap for what to do with myself. I woke early that morning to the soft glow of sunlight slipping between the curtains. The city outside was alive. Cars hum, voices of early commuters, the distant clatter of construction. I walked to the balcony and gazed down at the streets, breathing in the fresh morning air. There was a strange thrill in knowing that no one inside that apartment or outside that apartment could command me anymore. I was my own woman, my own master, my own story. After a simple breakfast, I called John, my trusted lawyer. John, I want to start planning my life, I said. Of course, Lily, he replied. We can start with anything you like. Travel, investments, charities, whatever you want. I smiled softly. For the first time, I realized how few decisions I had made solely for myself over the years. Now, I could make them all. I decided to walk through the city that morning. The streets were alive with sounds and scents I hadn't noticed in years. Fresh bread from bakeries, the smell of coffee wafting from cafes, the faint perfume of flowers in small shop windows. I passed people who smiled at me politely, some curious, some kind. I realized how much kindness matters, even in the smallest gestures. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel it fully. As I walked, I thought about my son, Michael. I thought about how he had treated me, how he had demanded, ignored, and sometimes disrespected me. And I realized I didn't need anger. I didn't need to punish him. What I needed was space, freedom, peace, and I would have it. I stopped at a small park. Children ran past me, laughing, chasing birds. I smiled, remembering the days when my own son had run across lawns just like that, small and bright-eyed. Those memories were bittersweet. They reminded me of joy, and also of the distance I had grown from the child I had raised. But it also reminded me that life is always moving, and there is always a chance to reclaim moments of happiness, even if they look different now. Later, I returned to my apartment, and for the first time, I explored it fully. I opened cabinets, drawers, and closets I had not touched yet. Everything was pristine. Everything belonged to me. I opened the fridge and found a note from the building staff. Miss Lily, please let us know if you need anything. Such a small gesture, yet it made my heart swell. This simple kindness was worth more than the money in my bank account. I sat by the window with a cup of tea thinking. Money had always been just a tool, a secret that kept me quiet. But now, it was freedom. And freedom demands choices. I had choices I had never dared make before. To live simply or luxuriously. To travel or stay. To help others or focus solely on myself. For the first time, I felt the incredible weight and beauty of possibility. In the following days, I began to make small changes. I ordered groceries for myself online, hired a gentle cleaning lady so that my apartment stayed warm and clean without effort on my part, and started planning small trips to parts of the city I had never visited. Every action was a reminder that I no longer lived for anyone else but me. Every decision, small or large, reinforced the sense of dignity I had lost for so many years. One afternoon, as I was walking near a local library, I overheard a young woman arguing with a store clerk. She was shouting, angry, frustrated. It reminded me of Michael, not because he was angry, but because he once acted without thought. I found myself gently speaking to the young woman, calming her, and she smiled at me gratefully. It surprised me how good it felt to offer help without expectation, without obligation. Perhaps this was how I would give back to the world, not out of duty, but out of love. The days rolled into weeks. I learned to live independently, comfortably, freely. I began attending small classes, art, literature, and history, reconnecting with passions I had long abandoned while caring for others. I started journaling each evening, recounting my memories, reflecting on my new life, and imagining the woman I could still become. The default text of every page I wrote was a testament to survival, resilience, and self-respect. One evening, John called. "Lily," he said, "we've completed all arrangements. Your accounts are fully under your control, investments secured, everything in your name alone." "Thank you, John," I replied softly. "It's more than I ever imagined. You've earned it," he said. "And don't forget, you have the power to help others as well." That night, I sat on my balcony, looking out over the city lights. I thought about Michael again. Did he realize he had lost me? Perhaps, perhaps not. But my happiness did not depend on his awareness. It depended on me. And for the first time in decades, I felt truly, undeniably happy. I made a small vow to myself. I would never again allow anyone to make me feel small. I would never again let anyone see me as a servant, a burden, or invisible. And yet, I would also continue to love in my own way, not through obligation, but through choice. Love without fear, without expectation, without being used. Weeks passed, and the world continued, bustling and loud, while I quietly built my sanctuary. I redecorated my apartment with simple, elegant, soft colors, comfortable furniture, and small reminders of the life I had survived. On one wall, I hung a photograph of my late husband, William, smiling warmly. Beside it, I placed a small vase with fresh lilies, a quiet tribute to love, memory, and resilience. I also began giving anonymously small amounts to charities, shelters, and programs that help the elderly, the forgotten, and the overlooked. It gave me joy unlike anything I had known before. Each act of giving was not about control, but about connection. I began to realize that true power lies not in wealth, but in freedom, and freedom comes with the choice to act with kindness. One sunny morning, as I walked to the nearby cafe, I bumped into an elderly neighbor I had never met. We exchanged smiles, introductions, and slowly, a friendship formed. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine human connection outside of family obligations. Someone who valued me as a person, not as a caretaker. Even my evenings became treasures. I would sit by the balcony, tea in hand, writing in my journal. Sometimes I laughed quietly at memories of Michael's youth, at the stubbornness of life, at the irony of my situation. Other times, I allowed myself to grieve, to feel the sorrow of lost time, and then let it pass. Every emotion was valid, every moment reclaimed, and every breath mine to cherish. Through it all, one truth became clear. Happiness is not given. It is taken, slowly, deliberately, courageously. And at 73, I had finally taken mine. The weeks turned into months. The seasons changed outside my window. Spring brought blossoms, summer brought warmth, autumn brought a cascade of gold leaves, and winter arrived quietly, dusting the city with frost. But inside my apartment, life flowed with its own rhythm, calm and deliberate. I woke when I wanted, I ate what I wanted, I walked when I wanted, and most importantly, I lived without fear of being dismissed, ignored, or commanded. I often thought of Michael, sometimes with sadness, sometimes with a quiet understanding. A mother's heart never stops caring, no matter how deeply she has been wronged. But I no longer allowed guilt to shadow my freedom. The day I walked away from his house was the day I reclaimed myself. And that day, I promised, would be remembered as the first day of my true life. One morning, as the sun rose over the city, I sat on my balcony with a notebook and a cup of tea. My hair, white and soft, caught the early light. My hands, though wrinkled, held the pen with purpose. I was writing a memoir, a record of my life, my choices, my heartbreaks, and my triumphs. I wanted to leave something behind that reflected me, not someone else's expectations. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was John. "Lily, you've been invited to a private charity gala tonight. A chance to meet like-minded people and start your philanthropic work." I smiled. "Thank you, John. I think I will go. It's time to connect with others who see value in kindness." That evening, I arrived at the gala dressed simply but elegantly. The room sparkled with chandeliers and laughter. Yet, amidst all the wealth and influence, I felt grounded. I was no longer defined by money or expectations. I was defined by choice. People approached me, curious about my story. I shared pieces of it carefully, like one might unwrap fragile glass. I spoke of sacrifice, resilience, and quiet courage. And to my surprise, many listened. They nodded. They understood. They respected. At that gala, I met women and men who had endured similar struggles, people who had been overlooked, underestimated, or silenced. And I realized how powerful it was to connect with those who truly understood. I pledged support, anonymously at first, to their causes. Later, I would contribute more publicly. But my work, my joy, my purpose, it would always be on my terms. Days later, I received a small package in the mail. It was a bouquet of white lilies with a note. "You inspire more than you know. A friend." With each passing day, I built a life of quiet comfort and strength. I hired a gentle companion, an older woman who had been lonely and needed work, so that we could share conversation, tea, and laughter. Together, we walked in the parks, talked about life, shared stories, and even laughed at the absurdities of our past struggles. I realized that connection, not wealth, gave life meaning. One crisp morning, as I walked through the neighborhood, a familiar voice called my name. I turned to see Michael, standing across the street, hesitant and uncertain. He was older now, carrying the weight of years and responsibilities, and perhaps, just perhaps, the weight of regret. "Mom," he began, his voice soft. I raised a hand gently, signaling him to stop. "Michael, I live my life now," I said calmly. "Not for you, not for anyone. I hope you understand that." He nodded slowly. Tears formed in his eyes. I was wrong. I didn't see you. I took you for granted." I studied his face. I saw him, the boy I had raised, the man he had become, and the apology that finally came too late. My heart softened, but I remained firm. "Words are not enough, Michael. Actions matter. You must learn to respect those you love. That is the lesson life is giving you." He nodded again, swallowing hard. I could see the remorse, but I also saw the chance for growth. Perhaps in time, we could rebuild something, not as it was, but something better. After he left, I returned to my apartment, my sanctuary, and smiled at the flowers. John had sent a gift, not from him, but from me, to remind myself, I am enough. I am worthy. I am free. As winter melted into spring, I took my first solo trip overseas, Italy, a place I had dreamed of visiting for decades. I wandered through ancient streets, touched the walls of historic churches, tasted foods I had only imagined, and laughed freely without worry. The world was vast, beautiful, and waiting. And now, I could claim it for myself. Months turned into a year. I built a routine that brought me joy, peace, and purpose. I continued to give anonymously, help quietly, and live boldly. I had learned that wealth is not about hoarding. It is about freedom, the freedom to make choices that honor your life and your dignity. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I whispered a prayer of gratitude. Thank you, William, for giving me the strength to live. Thank you, life, for showing me that it is never too late to choose yourself. And thank you, Lily, for having the courage to step away and reclaim your life. I held the small bouquet of lilies in my hand, their fragrance reminding me of the past, the lessons, and the peace I had finally found. And as the sky turned shades of orange and violet, I smiled, knowing that life, true life, had only just begun. To everyone listening or reading my story, remember, it is never too late to stand up for yourself, to choose your own happiness, and to live with dignity. And if you enjoyed this journey with me, please subscribe to the channel. There are countless more stories of courage, love, and life waiting to be told.